Hello? You got me?
Hey, Jim, how are you?
Hi, sweet. There you are. I was a problem getting my computer going. We got Nick, Swede, Chris is here. Oh, hey, Nick.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Are we waiting for anybody else to show? Dale, you're here.
Hey, how you doing? I think Hamilton is going to be joining us. I'll
Okay.
shoot you a text. Oh, there's Hamilton right there, just joining.
Okay.
Hey guys, this is Hamilton and the rest of the Ironwood Renewables team.
I think that's it from our end, Jim.
Hi, this is Karen Costa.
All right, I think we're all here. Anybody else missing or? I don't think so.
We had it fine. No.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. It's being 4:31 on 10/28, 2020. I'm gonna call the meeting to order for the Freetown ZBA via Zoom. I have a little thing I need to read per the governor's order here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions on the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 38, Section 19, and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Freetown Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort is being made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to view the meeting while in progress may do so by accessing the Zoom meeting information listed on our meeting posting. A recording of this meeting will also be available at the town's YouTube channel, youtube.com/FreetownMass, or accessible by visiting freetownmass.gov/freecam following the meeting. All right, that's that. Next thing, so we're gonna open up the meeting for the continuation of the Zero Braley Road variance for a buildable lot. A couple of things have transpired. I have a letter from, or actually just an email from one of the abutters that could not be at the meeting tonight. So I just want to put that into the record. That is from Natalie Coster, that they're opposed to this project. Also, it will be into the record that Dale sent us some other information There's a letter also will be available and downloaded as well that I passed out to all the ZBA members. You guys should have all had that by now and read that, so. Okay, and I think that's it. So I'll turn the floor over to to you guys and let us know what's going on, what you want to do.
Hi, Jim. Thanks. I think maybe real quickly, I know you met with Hamilton and Greg at the last hearing. I was out of the office that week, but we interacted on the first go around here. So I thought what we could do, if beneficial, is kind of give a very brief overview of the content of the letter and then kind of pass it over to Greg and then, field questions. So I guess what we were left with after the last meeting was essentially demonstrating a hardship and sort of providing some of the history regarding the separation of the parcel that occurred when the railroad bisected it. I guess the Costas have owned the parcel since the 20s. And so it's been in the family for a very long time. And they did have rights to an access to that back parcel that the crossing was removed by the railroad sometime between 1930, about 1947, approximately. And again, we provided some of the background information appended to this letter. And so that access to that back parcel was not restored until very recently in 2015. And so the land was made inaccessible originally by the construction of the railroad through the property. And so the railroad didn't comply with its obligation to maintain access to that back parcel. And, therefore the lack of frontage demonstrates, I guess, a hardship that placed an encumbrance on the property, and that was not an action of the underlying landowner. And so that's kind of the position that we're in here. Greg, I'll pass it to Greg from Krebs and Lansing if he's got anything to add in terms of additional background to the discussion.
Yeah, so thanks for meeting with us, guys. As Dale was saying, the hardship as is defined is the structure of the railroad. The railroad bisected the property, cutting the property in half, and therefore the variance that we're requesting due to that hardship is the variance of frontage for that property to still be allowed to use that property without the frontage. So the hardship itself is the structure, is the railroad. I think.
Okay. So you say that the hardship, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was the railroad there before your land, or was the land there before the railroad? So you're saying that they came in and put that railroad crossing in and cut you off, allowing you not to have a buildable lot?
Yes. The land was there before the railroad. The railroad had to go in one location. It bisected the property, creating two lots. So that railroad is the hardship.
Did they ever compensate the landowners for that?
I don't know. The property was took in fee.
Right, and the railroad was responsible to provide enduring access to the back parcel based on the deed agreement, but they failed to comply with what was required for decades. And now access has been restored, so the parcel's use could be restored if we were allowed this variance.
But was the owner ever compensated for that, or?
The lack of access to the back parcel? No, I believe that they were still paying taxes on the land as though it were usable during the duration of the time period where they did not have access to that back parcel, which was what, almost 80 years, if I'm not mistaken. See if I can pull the deed up here.
Also, too, your variance is just to make that a buildable lot as well. It's not just,
Yeah, I'm a buildable lot for any sort of use. Right now, it cannot be used for anything. Well, it can be used for some things, but its use is very limited to what is allowable usage for that zoned property. So I think your zoning calls for almost 37 to 40 uses, and those uses are pretty wide. I think you could define a lot of things under those uses, and without having frontage, the use of that property is whittled down pretty much to nothing that's labeled, but could be used for just recreational use only.
Passive, yeah.
So the frontage is the variance that we are requesting, but it would it allows the property to be used.
I don't have any more questions myself. If any of the board members got any questions that they want to talk about,
I don't have any.
unmute yourself and speak away.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Nick. I just want to clarify one thing. I was a little confused with the response to your question. Now, the railroad, as I understand from the letter and the deed, split the property prior to the Costa family owning this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Anybody else before I want to turn it over to, I could turn it over to the public shortly. I have all my questions answered, so.
I don't have any questions.
All right, so we're going to ask anybody in the public that's on that would like to speak, they can speak. I'm not sure we can unmute you. I'm not sure if there's another way to unmute if you're on a phone. But I see
It's a *6. If you're on a phone.
*6. Okay. If anybody would like to say something, though. Okay. No public comment at this time. Understandable. Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So my question is, when the property was purchased by the Costas, it was purchased as two separate lots divided by the railroad, is that correct?
No, that is incorrect. It was always owned by the Costas. The railroad came in, split the property in half, causing the hardship.
I think it was asked, was that two, you asking Rob if that was two lots back there and they combined them?
No, what I'm asking, it goes back to Nick's question, whether the Costas owned that when the railroad divided it. And I think we've gotten two separate answers. So I just want some clarification.
All right. Can you guys
Actually-
answer that?
Excuse me, guys. This is Ian Jukes. The railroad split the property when it was built back in, I think it was like 1840.
Correct.
Right. So they owned it under one deed, but it was two parcels because the railroad, I believe, was taken in fee.
So Rob's question is, so the railroad didn't split the land when the Costas owned it. The land
Correct.
was, when Costas bought the land, that railroad easement was there, correct?
Yes, the railroad was there.
Okay. So you knew about the hardship before you purchased the land. So you knew you had, all right. So you knew you didn't have a buildable lot when you bought it?
No, I guess I'd view it a little differently. They had what they believed they had was the right to cross the railroad tracks to get to their property and use it that way. And then that right was removed. So during the time, certainly before there was zoning and, further control on how you built back there, they had the opportunity to build.
Right.
The railroad didn't allow them access.
The access
Until
was-
2015.
Right. The access moved in the 30s when the Costas had purchased a property. When they purchased a property, access existed, so that back lot was usable. Then in the 30s or the early 40s, that access was removed by the railroad and then not reinstated until fairly recently. And as Ian referenced, obviously a lot's changed since 1930.
So, okay, so just to wrap my head around it, what you're asking for is a variance from current day saying that it was grandfathered due to its prior to subdivision control. It was established lot prior to subdivision control. Therefore, it should still be grandfathered under the old, which there was no actual building guidelines.
Right.
So you're saying that that's what you should be falling under, not under the current zoning laws.
That's a good way of saying it, yes. They would have built on it if they had access, probably, one would think, in the intervening 50 years or so here.
Well, the access is really kind of a moot point, whether it's either was a buildable lot and is still the same lot because it was established prior to subdivision control, or it's not. That's where the question comes down to, is whether the board feels that the grandfather is appropriate.
Correct.
I guess for you, Mr. Chairman, that's what the board needs to deliberate on, is whether it feels that the grandfather would be an active, would fall under the active grandfather clauses, or if it would not.
Okay, understood.
And our position is that the denial of access for quite a few years there by the railroad is, what kept it from being built on.
So that begs the question here, that kind of throws a little wrench in it, because we're asking for a variance, right? We are not asking for an appeal of the building inspector's decision that is a buildable lot. I look at that as possibly two separate issues. Do you guys on the board think about that one?
Well, it sounds exactly, that's what it sounds like it is. It sounds like
they applied for a variance.
I understand that, but right. What they really are doing is appealing his decision and not necessarily asking for a hardship. I don't see a hardship as much as I see should it have been an appeal of the ZOA's determination, or ZOE's determination.
Right, I understand that, but being a variance, I would have rather seen it as an administrative appeal more than I would have seen it as a variance to make that a buildable lot. But I guess it's probably the same thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I guess from our perspective, we were basing it on the initial variance requested on the front parcel, and then kind of following what we thought was the direction we got, after the initial hearing on not zero Braley Road, but Costa Drive.
May I add something? This is Adrian Hordley with Ironwood Renewables. I think that it's also critical to understand that the property was one property that was bisected by the railroad in the 1830s via warranty deed. At the time, the railroad did not take right-of-way agreements the way they are customary nowadays. I think for its expansion, they used right-of-way agreements. And the property was not formally partitioned until the 1990s. As it was mentioned, when the Costas bought the property, they had a crossing, which was in the 1920s. The crossing was removed in the 30s or early 40s. And at the time when it was formally partitioned, legally, it was in the 1990s, at a time when the western portion of the property was not accessible. So I think you also have to consider that really what applies to the eastern side of the train tracks applies to the western side as it is in record title as an encumbrance on the railroad's property rights. So the fact that now there's a crossing as of 2015, well, when the Costas partitioned the property in the 90s, I guess they didn't have any hope that there was going to be a crossing in the future. And the crossing was reinstated in 2015. So I think the variance would be appropriate just if you look at the history of the east side of the track as the same as the west side.
So it's your argument then that those are not, well, were not two separate lots when it was divided by the railroad? And that was all one lot until the 1990s? Is that what your position is?
Well, I think that's record title reveals that.
And what happened in 1990 to divide the lot? Who did the town divide the lot, or did the applicants divide the lot?
I think in the 90s it became two separate assessments.
So before that, it was one single deed and one single tax bill for the entire parcel?
I think that's
Yep. And the Costas tried to reinstate the easement over the years and it never got it. So at that point, you know, they didn't think they were ever going to get it. Mike Costa had to spend thousands of dollars to get the crossing back.
I think what happened in the 1990s, they're monkeying around with the form of ownership, what entity owned it. I think that's kind of separate from the lot, you know, the status of it as a buildable lot, right? Which is really zoning can stick your hands into.
Well, it is and it isn't. So if they pop off a 5,000 square foot piece, that would now create its own hardship because it'd be a separate parcel. It may not be a lot, but a separate parcel. It would fall into current zoning. Wouldn't be buildable. You wouldn't be able to put a house on that one piece.
Right.
So I think that also speaks to the heart of the issue. If it was all still one big lot, you would have the frontage out front and it'd all be one big lot.
Yeah.
If it's two separate lots, that's what we're talking about. Now the frontage applies to the first lot, the lot that's on Costa Drive, but it doesn't apply to the second lot necessarily. So that's where the crux of the whole thing lies, in my opinion. If tomorrow the Costas decided to divide that two more ways, then you lose the grandfather to say it was, you know, this was a buildable lot prior to subdivision control, 1960 subdivision control in Massachusetts, in Freetown. So that's a different argument than we subdivided it. We subdivided this piece off, and we want to maintain its original host, what it was. Well, it doesn't work that way. Once you divide the lot, you're now creating a new lot, and it has to go by new zoning. The old lot doesn't, but the new one does.
Create your own hardship at that point.
Right.
You would be creating your own hardship.
Okay.
And if I recall correctly, these two lots are under two different entities. So that must have happened in the 90s.
That's correct, because he never thought he was going to have access to the other side. He thought it was a lost cause. When the railroad came in, there was two railroad tracks. They took one away, and they took away his crossing. The crossing was never established, and they never, you know, he fought to bring it back. His family fought to bring it back. They never got it. So then he thought it was a lost cause. It took him thousands of dollars to get the crossing. At that point, it was 2015.
Still kind of sort of doesn't, it doesn't really take away that you still created your own hardship there with all the,
Excuse me, can you hear me?
we can.
Hi, thank you. I'm Karen Costa, and Mike wants to say something.
All right, can you, okay, you're from the public and you would like to speak. If you could give us your name and also your address, please.
My name is Karen Costa,
Your address?
5226 Townsend Avenue, Los Angeles.
Okay, so what property are you representing, that the abutter or?
main question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. There was two Costas on here, that's why.
Okay,
You had no butter that's at a Costa as well.
I see.
Okay,
Thank you, sir. So Mike wants to say something, please.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me on my phone?
Yes.
Okay. So what happened was my father inherited the land from his father. So then he tried for years to get the crossing restored. And at that time, it was CSX, I believe. And he just couldn't get anywhere. They weren't going to do it. He provided documentation. So you know about Costa Drive. So in order for him to do Costa Drive properly, he couldn't get over the tracks. So he had to create that separation because he didn't have a crossing. So then, I'd say 5, 6 years, my father was tired of paying taxes on a piece of land he couldn't get to. So I took it over, so he wouldn't have the tax burden. Then, with the help of Representative Paul Schmidt, he helped me establish my rights to have a crossing. But then I had to go back and forth with the MBTA to the point where I had to go get a lawyer. And, lawyers talk to lawyers. And so much time and money later, they said, sure. And they restored the crossing. And so that's the history. So we feel like if the crossing had been there, we wouldn't have had to, my father wouldn't have had to separate in order to do Costa Drive.
Thank you.
Okay, I understand. All right, anybody else would like to speak of this? You guys all set on the board, or are you getting more questions?
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Sweet, you good?
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we are so you guys, I want to close the public portion of this project and we can vote on it right now. You guys on the board would like to do that?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from the vote since I was not at the last meeting.
Sure. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to close the public portion of this meeting.
These should be roll call votes as well, just because
Yes,
it's over
sir.
Zoom.
Yes. Guys, I mean, members of the board, I don't know if you have anything you want to speak about, but again, I'm in agreement with Rob and the way he presented it and talked about the
Mr. Chairman, point of order, Mr. Chairman, you have a motion on the floor to close the public hearing. You're gonna need a vote.
Oh, sorry, roll call vote. Okay. I think we're in person. I'll take a roll call vote on the closing of the public portion of the meeting. Nick Veloza,
Aye.
Reed
Yes.
Magnet,
Sweet Magnet, aye.
and Jim Freights, aye. So the motion is passed.
And I abstain, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the public portion of the meeting is now closed. So, again, I'll go back to my opinion of the hardship being created by the owner and to, unfortunately, the way it transpired over the years. I understand the way it went down, but that's I don't know if I get you guys have any other input on that with me, or that's the way I feel over here. So, if you guys would like to vote on this,
I would just like to say something from,
Sure.
I think the last meeting. I'm glad that the applicant gave us the information. However, as we suspected, the Costas owned this property after the railroad created an easement or whatever terms that they used back then. It was difficult to read the deed. However, it was split prior to that. And then in the 90s, as the applicant stated, they did split the land and it did switch ownership or into an LLC, I believe it was. So I do agree that this hardship was also created by the applicant themselves.
I agree. I mean, hindsight being 20/20, I understand that. Today, they probably might not. I'll entertain a motion.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't hear you. You were cutting out.
I'll, if anybody like to put a motion. Can you hear me, Nick? Oh, I lost you, Nick. Nick, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
That's okay. I got you now.
All right, well, I make a motion that we deny the variance application. I don't have the exact address here. I don't think there was one.
He's got it listed as 0 Braley Road.
247 lot 6 due to the hardships that were listed previously stated.
What did you say, Nick? I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, did you not hear the whole thing?
I did not hear the whole thing. Welcome to Zoom.
I said that I make a motion that we deny the variance application to the Board of Appeals for 0 Braley Road, map 247, lot 6, due to the hardships that were previously discussed.
Okay. I'm looking for a second on that motion.
I second that motion.
We're going to do a roll call vote, actually. I'm sorry about that. Let's do a roll call vote on that motion. The motion was made to deny the variance for the buildable lot as recommendation. We'll do a roll call vote. Nick Veloza,
Yes to deny.
Weed Magnet,
Yes to deny.
and Jim Freites is yes to deny. So the motion has failed.
I'll abstain, Mr. Chairman.
And yes, and Rob Jones abstains from that. So the request for variance has failed. And that's all we have for tonight, fellas.
Thank you, board.
All right,
Oh, you're welcome.
guys.
And guys, we have, we have a little bit more business that we can do with you. We got some minutes from the previous meeting.
Do we have an application for an in-law apartment?
No, not tonight. It was not, I did not say, that was not listed on the, on tonight's agenda.
Yeah, it
When
came
you
in.
said that to me, I actually went back and looked. I didn't see that.
It came in, but it was incomplete, so he came and filled out the rest yesterday, but didn't have enough time to advertise for public hearing or anything.
Okay, so when that comes in, we'll act on that one as well. And so what do we have? What do we have? Minutes from the last meeting I sent you guys. If you guys want to vote to approve those, we can do that.
I reviewed the minutes and I motion to approve the minutes from the last ZBA meeting, September 30th.
I second that motion.
Okay. So we'll do a roll call vote. Nick Veloza,
Yes.
Sweet Magnet,
Yes.
Jim Freites, aye. The motion has been made and we accepted the minutes from the 9:30 meeting. All right. We are done today, fellas.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you forgot Mr. Jose.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call vote. Rob Joes.
Me? Oh, I didn't
I'm
think I was
sorry.
part of this meeting. No, I'll abstain.
Okay, I
wasn't part of the
forgot you had
meeting.
to abstain. I'm sorry. It's all right. Go cut your grass, would you?
Is that beautiful? Look, it's a hydrangea.
Ah,
Taking on the
there it
field.
is.
Those are the tea leaves in St. Miguel, Portugal.
Nice.
Took that when I was there.
Ah, it was a nice picture.
Mm.
All right, fellas. I think that's all our business for tonight. Mr. Nick, you can.
Just a quick, I didn't see the agenda, however, I didn't see a date for
No.
the in-law, is that correct?
Yeah, we don't.
Is that
have
what
a
I
date.
heard from Nils?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Then I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second. I beat you to it.
Second. Roll call vote to adjourn.
Call the roll.
Rob Joes.
Me? Oh,
Yeah, you
aye.
first. You get.
Oh,
Aye.
look at that.
Sweet Magnet.
Aye.
Nick Veloza.
Yes.
Jim Freights, aye. Motion's been made. We're going home.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great night. Good
See
seeing you.
fellas.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Good night.